Bienvenidos a La Banca. Conducen Francisco Vélez y Sebastián Gil.
Hey Sebas, ¿cómo vamos?
Pacho, muy bien, muy contento de volver a la banca y creo que hoy lo hacemos mejor que nunca. Creo que está en el top 3 de los mejores invitados en este podcast.
De acuerdo, este comeback es como que, como Top Gun, como la nueva.
Yo creo que sí, parecido a esa versión. Y creo que uno de los mejores episodios que habíamos tenido en la banca, recuerden seguirnos ahí en Spotify y darle like en La Banca Podcast, había sido un escritor, Matt Rendell. Habíamos hablado sobre ciclismo, que conoce mucho sobre Colombia, y hoy estaremos con, yo creo que su par, pero en running, en el trote, con más de 2 millones de copias vendidas físicas alrededor del mundo, y permanece a la fecha como el libro más vendido sobre trotar y correr en la historia. Es Nacidos para Correr. Y hoy tenemos a su escritor acá, que es Christopher McDougall. Christopher, welcome to the show. How are you?
I was just thinking that a great title for a podcast or a memoir would be Mejor que Nunca.
Yeah, sounds great. Mejor que nunca. Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I feel. I am mejor que nunca. I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Fine. Very, very excited to have you here. Definitely, I was behind your back for a couple of days, and pretty excited you replied, because I've read the book a couple of times. I know Pacho has read it as well, and yes, I think for everyone who has run or has been involved in sports, this title comes to the conversation in a table or in any meeting every time sports are talked about. So very, very excited to have you here.
Let me ask you about that, because I have my own theory about why Born to Run is popular. But what is it specific? I'm not looking for compliments, but I'm curious, in your eyes, what sets it apart from other running books?
You know, Chris, I think I have the answer for that one. I'm gonna share a different story. You know, I became a dad 5 months ago, and one of the hardest things for me has been how to explain to others how being a dad feels. You know, putting that into words, it's really hard. And when I read your book, I believe you captured the true essence of running. You know, and putting that into words, into different stories. For me, that's something that, and in the analogy I'm using, being a dad and being a runner, you really capture something very powerful that when you read it, you really get to the essence of running. So basically, for me, that's why Born to Be Run is like a Bible in terms of running, you know? I don't know if that answers your question. Because
It does. It does in a really important way, because maybe it's that, by the way, congratulations, Papa.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy.
Yeah. Tell me about your child.
He's 5 months now, you know, and it's been a hell of an experience. But trying to explain that into words, it's really hard, you know, because it has to do with everything. And being a runner also has some of that.
But maybe that's it. Maybe the fact that at 5 months you're struggling, this is something you want to express, and you're really trying to get it right. 10 years from now, like, you won't be thinking about it anymore. Like, oh, that's just a guy. That's just a kid in the house. That's a kid who, spills all the soda on the floor. That's a kid who's constantly in front of the television. The newness and the kind of miracle of it all is what you're trying to capture now. But again, 10 years from now, it'll just be the same thing all the time. And when I wrote Born to Run, it was very similar. I was very new to the sport, and I came at it from an attitude of not liking it, thinking it's just idiotic. Why would anybody do this? It's painful. There's other things you can do. And then to suddenly discover, no, this could actually be fun. Like, why didn't anybody tell me this before? Like, this is what it feels like to be a dad. It's only been 5 months. It's crazy. And I think maybe that's where I got lucky. I remember when I started to work on Born to Run, I knew this guy who had run the Boston Marathon for like 20 years in a row. And I mentioned to him that I was working on this book. He goes, how long have you been running? Well, just about a year. He goes, huh? And you're already writing a book about it, huh? And to him, it's like, who the hell are you, dude? You're no expert. But that maybe was the strength, was that I wasn't an expert. And the sensations were still very new and exciting for me. And maybe that's where I got lucky. I wrote it from a position of newness and ignorance as opposed to expertise and seniority.
Okay. And Chris, and what got you interested in writing Born to Be Run? Why did you start?
I think it was a bunch of curiosity and unanswered questions on my part. It was one question. It was basically, I would say, personal curiosity. So I'm a freelance writer by profession, and often you get an assignment and you go do it. It's the question and the curiosity isn't really yours. It's either the publication or there's a story that exists in the world that everybody else is curious about. And so as a journalist, oh, hey, who's that movie star that secretly, steals food from his neighbor's backyard? I'm not personally curious, but the world is curious, that maybe Jake Gyllenhaal is jumping fences and, stealing packages off of someone. By the way, that did not happen. I just made it up, but as an example. But in this case, I was down in Chihuahua researching a story about Gloria Trevi. Do you guys know Gloria Trevi? Are you familiar with her whole saga?
Yes, yes, I saw the whole thing.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure. She's kind of past your generation. She's an '80s phenomenon. But I was researching the whole Gloria Trevi saga, and I was in Chihuahua, finding the families of some of the women who were involved in her group. And the whole time I'm in Chihuahua, I just keep seeing pictures of these men in dresses running around in sandals. And you see, like, on the driver's licenses in Chihuahua, there's a little emblem of a Tarahumara runner. Or you go into a diner and there's a big, like, Coca-Cola advertisement and there's a Tarahumara runner. And I had never heard of them. So I started to ask, well, who are these guys? And people tell me this story that just sounds mythological. Oh, they're a tribe and they're mysterious, but they're only a couple of hours away. And I became curious, and each question led to the other. I find a group of Tarahumara. They tell me about some guy called Caballo Blanco, this mysterious gringo. Well, what's his story? Then I meet him, and he's telling me about other stuff. So each step of the journey was to satisfy my own curiosity.
Yeah, so I just wanna compliment what Pacho said about why the book is different, and I think you just touch a little bit of that. The investigation part, the research part, you put into it. I think many running books are just they shoot you with information. Running is this, like this is the history, and they go to a place that's very pro or elite, and probably your book had a very different approach. You had this experience, you connected with it, you researched something that was very new and different for the running community, and everybody talks about it. So when the conversation comes, everybody just asks that question. Oh, have you seen this tribe in Mexico? Blah blah blah, and oh, Nacidos para Correr. So it's always there. So I think you match perfectly both things. So you were new to the sport, you were talking with a lot of emotion, and then you did an excellent research job. So I think both of the things got the book where it is now.
Yeah. I think maybe what was underlying all of that was my surprise that running could be fun. Even the research was driven by the fact that, like, wait, how the hell is this fun? Like, I don't get it. Why the Tarahumara having fun? Why is Jen Shelton running 100-mile races in 24 hours but having fun? And that was really the motivating force for the research was, if running is actually for everybody, then it should be fun, but why isn't it? And that's what I really started to dive into, was trying to understand how running could feel good all the time. And that's what I was trying to pursue.
So that, let's say, that leads to a first or another question. Why do you think running isn't fun for many people? Because I know there's people who just say, no, I tried it, that's not for me, I didn't feel anything.
Yeah, but I bet you if you ask every 5-year-old on planet Earth if they like running, they're like, yeah, of course I like running.
Yeah.
You know, so something happens between age 5 and age 25. And I think it's two things. Number one is we take these very healthy mammals called children and we stick them in a chair and say, don't move for like 14 years. Sit there and listen. You know, we stick them in schools, and then when they get home from school, you stick them in front of homework and you stick them in front of TVs. So kids who are all just like, I just want to jump off a shit. I just want to kick things. You know, I want to chase this ball around until it's dark. And they would say, nope, stop that. Sit down. And then for 15 years, you know, movement and play is really taken out of your life. And then you're only given 45 minutes to move your body. And you feel like, all right, for these 45 minutes, I better really like make the use of it. And so when you go out for your 45 minutes, you think, I got to go really hard. I got to, you know, exercise and sweat. And I think what happened is we took what had been free, loose, recreational movement, and we turned it into another form of work. You know, like in English, what do we call exercise? We call it a workout. You can't call it play, because that just seems foolish and childish. Instead, we call it a workout. So you take people who are working all day at their job, and then they go do another kind of work, which is their workout. So that's it. We basically spoiled it. And I think there's another aspect which has been super destructive for running, which is races. You know, everything about running is about competition. You know, did you run a marathon? How fast is your marathon? Did you run a 10K? Are you in your age group? You know, what was your time? Everything is about measurement and judging, as opposed to just playing and having fun. And that's what I really advocate for, bringing running back to a place of just pure joy.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, I guess you get this question a lot, but how do you turn that internal flip? You know, you flip that internal switch that takes you back to being a natural born runner, you know?
You know, I think the thing that most people forget is that running is a fine art. It's a craft like any other activity. If you're trying to play the violin or swim or learn like a martial art, you don't just jump into competition. No one hands you a violin and says, how fast can you play that violin? No, you learn slowly how to master the instrument. Same with karate. You spend years mastering the movements, but you get a lot of satisfaction out of taking your time and mastering the movements. That's what the real satisfaction comes from. But what we've done with running is we put these devices on our feet, these heavily cushioned shoes, which removes the biofeedback that we get from our bodies. And so the shoes allow you to run very far, very fast immediately. But to me, that's very destructive. If every runner who began to run was forced to begin barefoot, absolutely barefoot, they would take their time. Like they would master the movements because they would have to. It would be painful. And so to me, like if you want a really easy way, and people hate to hear this, but if you really want to learn how to love running, as strange as it sounds, I would say only run barefoot on pavement. Your body will tell you how to balance itself, how to move itself, and it will force you to slow the hell down and progress slowly.
That's a great advice, you know?
Sebastian doesn't think so. Sebastian's looking at me like, dude, I'm never doing that.
No, the thing is that I do run, and I do a lot of ultra marathons. And actually, I'm now in a team which we're the first Colombians to be part of the Speed Project. I don't know if you know the race.
Oh yeah, I know the Speed Project, sure.
Yeah, so we've been invited, so that's a very nice thing. Yeah, so I've done lots of distances, 100 miles, 80 miles, and just thinking about doing any distance barefoot, I couldn't imagine that. Yeah.
I know. I was looking at your face while I was talking. You're like shaking your head, like not for me.
Yeah, because
And
I do love mountain running, like trekking and ultra trekking, ultra marathons, and that hurt your feet a lot. So imagine without the shoes, that would be.
Yeah, yeah. Chris,
you're,
and you
you're, you're
mentioned,
very you're very right in one sense, Sebastian. Is that yeah, rocks, stones, they would hurt your feet. But here's the situation: shoes are great when they offer protection. The problem we got into as humans is we then started to add correction. So, the original shoes were just a thin little sole across the bottom of your foot. And then in cold climates, we put an upper on it to keep your foot warm. And that was it. And that design worked very well for many, many years. But then, in the 70s and the 80s, we started to add foam and motion control and anti pronation. And that's the problem. But you, as a mountain runner, I'm going to have to assume that you probably are very agile, nimble, that your foot placement is probably very quick. Most people don't come into running that way. They start running like on long roads with cushioned shoes, which encourages them to actually run poorly and heavily. The mountain is forcing you to run lightly and athletically, and that's a big advantage in your favor.
Nice.
yeah, Chris, and you mentioned in the book that 8 out of 10 runners get injured every year. That has to do with shoes, I imagine.
I think so. I think the problem again with the shoes is that it is allowing you to do more than your body is really capable of. It is numbing your foot. It's like giving your foot an anesthetic, so your foot is not getting the sense of pain. The sense of, whoa, you know what? Maybe we're running too far. We should slow down. So your foot is now numb, and you can just keep hammering it away. If you put an injection in your hand to make it numb, you could smack it on the table all day. And you don't realize you're breaking the bones because you can't feel it. And that's what I think contributes to the injuries.
Yeah, I agree. And I have to confess, after I read your book, I bought a pair of shoes that had a very thin sole,
Have,
because
have you tried? Pacho, go.
No, because I believe that a lot of the posture correction has to do with the shoe, So yeah, I really believe in your theory. Yeah, I believe it's really true. It has to do with evolution,
We have a little thing we try to show people is, what one difficulty people run into is they'll buy the thin soled shoe and they'll put it on their feet and think, okay, well, that's all I got to do, thinking that the shoe is going to change their form, but it doesn't. You can still run badly in a thin soled shoe. So we came up with this little exercise we do when people say, well, how should I learn running form? We say, it's so easy. Take off your shoes, stand with your back facing a wall, and then do you guys know the song Rock Lobster by the B-52s?
No, I don't. I don't know if Seba does.
It's one of those songs. It's like a worm in your brain. Like once you hear it, you can never get it out of your brain again. Yeah. And so, but it's also it's a perfect 90 beats per minute, bum 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 bada bada bum bum, very rhythmic like that, but a fast rhythm. And so we tell people, take off your shoes barefoot, face the wall with your back, and then put on Rock Lobster, and then run in place. So if you're running barefoot, you can't land on your heel; it just won't work. And if you keep your back to the wall, you can't stray, you can't kick backwards because you'll hit the wall. And then Rock Lobster bump is that perfect cadence. And then once the song is in your brain, from now on, whenever you go out to run, your brain will automatically just start playing that song. You'll automatically have your cadence because you cannot unhear the song.
Okay, I'll try that definitely.
All right.
So you mentioned something. We were talking about motivation and what keeps you going and running. And I think it's the question that most people that I get ask them most, like, oh, how do I keep motivated? How, like, and I basically don't have an answer. Like, one of my answers is just like try to do it for a month or until it becomes a habit. But I think that's like a cliche thing. What's from all your research and your knowledge, what's your advice on keeping motivated?
The funny thing is, all of my research and advice has led me back to Barefoot Ted. You know, you guys know him from the book. I don't know if you've ever seen any videos of Barefoot Ted talking. He is just as crazy in person as he was down the Copper Canyon. And we've remained friends. We've remained good friends. Now it's been more than 10 years. And one time, Sebastian, you'll appreciate this. Ted was running the Leadville Trail 100,
Yeah.
a 100-mile race at very high altitude. And he did an amazing job. He finished it in under 24 hours, which is really, really fast. And he did it basically barefoot. He was wearing either his own sandals or completely barefoot. And at the end of the race, I paced him over the last 13 miles, and he is flying, and he's doing great. And I'm like, what is up with this guy? Like, he's a friggin' mutant. It's like running with Wolverine. And after the race, I said, Ted, man, you must have been training like a monster this year. He was like, no. I've only been training 25 miles a week. I'm like, dude, you're running 5 miles a day and taking 2 days off, and you're running a 100-mile race. And he goes, so you don't understand. I'm not interested in the limits of what's painful. I'm interested in the limits of what's pleasurable. So he's saying this shit, and I'm already like rolling my eyes and like, Ted. But then I started to think about it. I'm like, that's the answer, Sebastian. That is exactly the answer to the question. Most people feel that if I'm going to go out for a run, it ought to feel bad. You know, like, well, if I'm running, I should be sweating. I should be breathing hard, or else I'm not doing anything. And what Ted taught me is when you go out for a run, do whatever feels good. It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be far. It doesn't have to be hard. You know, go for a run. Go as slow as you want. If you feel tired, stop and walk. If your feet hurt, take your shoes off. And what people, I think, will appreciate is if every day they do a little bit and enjoy it, that becomes an upward cycle. If you go out and you do it and it kind of sucks and you're forcing yourself to do it, that's a downward spiral. Because anything that is unpleasant, at some point you're going to quit. Anything that's pleasurable, no one has to remind me to have a beer. You know, I don't need a reminder because I want to do it. You know, it's an upward cycle. I had a beer. I think I'd like to have another beer, and maybe I'll have another beer. I'll have a beer tomorrow. So that's basically what I would tell people is, you know what? Remove the sense. Don't think about a race. Don't think about how fast. Just move your body in any way that's comfortable, and then repeat that.
Yeah, I think, and I think that as you said earlier, the competition aspect of the whole thing, because people start like, oh, I want to run, and immediately the second thought is, what race I'm gonna do? It's like it's been connected for us. So running, racing, and I think that's. And then the third thought is, okay, I'm gonna race. What time I'm gonna do? So you immediately start like in a downward position, if you want to call it like that. So I think it's
you know what else contribute. You know what else contributes to it as well is in any running publication, any advice about running, the first thing they tell you is before you start running, go to a running specialty store and get fitted for the right shoes. So you go to that store and like you don't know anything because there's a million shoes on the wall and there's all this like fancy language and like you're automatically put in a position of inferiority. You have to depend on the salesperson because you don't know. And then they sell you a pair of shoes and they're really expensive and they're fancy. And then you go home and you look at these things and you think, oh, I bought these shoes. I better go run, you know? And once you put them on your feet, you feel like, oh, now I got to run fast because I bought these expensive shoes. I feel like buying the shoes also creates a guilt cycle. Like I bought them, I better use them. They're special shoes. I better actually run and not walk. And that creates an added emotional burden.
Yeah, definitely. Chris, and in your book, you describe a lot about the culture in the Tarahumara. I really like the part when you talk about the different virtues. You know, you talk about strength, patience, cooperation, dedication, persistence. Could you elaborate on that? You know, how did you get to those virtues? How was that experience meeting the Tarahumara?
It was puzzling for me because, you know, as a journalist, I'm used to showing up someplace, asking a bunch of questions, People are happy to talk, writing it all down, and then I leave. But with the Tarahumara, I arrived in the Copper Canyon and I met Arnulfo Kimare, who's a wonderful Tarahumara runner. And I started to ask him questions and he's just not answering, barely talking at all. And that was my experience with many of the Tarahumara I met the first time in the Copper Canyon, was they were not interested in talking. But they seemed very relaxed, very hospitable, very friendly. And they just seem very different than the culture I'm used to. A culture of people that are eager to express themselves or to show off. And they were not like that at all. And so it was puzzling for me. And I was trying to figure out what was up with them. And then I would actually see Tarahumara kids running, during the breaks, during the recess of their school, and they're running for fun. I'm like, wow, that's weird. And then I see older guys in their 80s, men and women, running up a mountain. Wow, how are they doing that? So I became curious. I really started to study them and try to learn as much as possible. And that sort of led me down that road of understanding, like, wait a minute, this is probably how all humans existed prior to colonization, prior to the spread of the Industrial Revolution, because we had to rely on our own bodies. That was our only form of transportation. We had to rely on each other, because if you wanted food, you didn't message Amazon. You had to go out and get the food. If you were in trouble, you didn't call the fire department. You didn't call the police department. You called your neighbor. Your neighbor had to help you. And so what was so fascinating about spending time with the Tarahumara was I felt like the situation reversed. I thought that we were normal, and I was looking at them as a strange kind of culture. And then I realized, no, it's the opposite. They were normal. They are representing what humans did for millions of years. The rest of us are pretty fucked up. We're the ones that are looking at our screens and dialing our phones and watching television, doing all this destructive shit. They're the ones that remember that humans are another form of animal, and animals like to live close to the earth, know where their food came from. Do you guys have cats? Any of you guys have a cat?
I have a dog.
Dogs.
I'm more a dog person.
I can't speak to dogs, but I will speak to cats. Cats, love their food. But if I give my cat a little piece of fresh raw fish, if he hasn't had it before, he's looking at that I don't know, man. I'm like, dude, it's fresh fish. I don't know. And so, animals like to know where their food comes from, and they want to know it's healthy for them. They're not just going to eat any stupid shit that they find. So anyway, that's how the Tarahumara live. They know where their food comes from. They rely on each other. They keep their bodies ready because their body is their first form of response. And I think maybe all this idea of strength, happiness, sociability comes from that. They remember what it's like to live as a true human.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, so Chris, I just want to go to a place where you were just mentioning something very brief, because many people ask questions about the healthiness of the sport, about running. So I think it's probably one of the most comments you get, like, oh, running's not healthy. You get injured. It hurts. Humans are not human. Quotes as humans are not made for running. But I guess from your research and your whole experience, humans, I guess anthropologically, I don't know if that's a word, or through evolution, are we made for running?
We're the best distance runners in history. No creature on Earth has ever been as good at distance running as humans. It's the one superpower we actually had for a long time. When you look at us, as animals, you strip a guy naked and you put him in the jungle, he looks pretty ridiculous. We don't have fur, we don't have fangs, we don't have claws, we don't have wings, we don't have tails. All the stuff, all the really cool stuff that other animals have. Gorillas are super friggin' strong. Rabbits are really fast. We don't have any of that. And so when you think about a naked human 1 million years ago, we're the worst. We're like the worst animal that's ever shown up on the planet, except for one thing. These weird naked bodies we have are covered in sweat glands. And the fact that we are vertical as opposed to horizontal. Most creatures are horizontal. They are four-legged, they move horizontally. It's kind of weird to have an animal be vertical. And the reason why is because that is actually really good for running. Distance running, not sprinting, but having two legs and a vertical posture, having a body that is covered in skin and sweat glands allows humans to run very long distances in hot weather. And we're the only ones that can do it. And that was our early weapon. So the only way we could get food was by setting out as a group, as a communal pack, as a hunting pack on a hot day in the African savanna and just chasing an antelope until the antelope has to either breathe or cool off. Because that's the thing about it is every other land-based mammal, they cool off by panting, like your dog, Francisco. Your dog, if you take your dog running on a hot day, after a mile, he's like, I'm done. I'm going to go lie down in the shade. You're still feeling fine. So, it's kind of a long response to people, but humans evolved as long-distance runners. It is not harmful to your body at all. What is harmful, however, is cushioning your shoes in big soft pillows and trying to run as hard as you can all the time. Any animal that runs hard for a long time will get hurt. So just relax, learn how your body wants to move, and you're good forever.
Yeah, when I hear your answers and I come back to the beginning of this conversation, you really got to the essence of running, and that for me is something really, really, really valuable in the book. I have one question, Chris. You also mentioned in the book, and I'm going to quote this, that running has a connection also with solving problems, and you in the book you mentioned, and I quote, if you don't have answers to your problems after a 4-hour run, you're never going to get them, So what do you think about that?
I think what happens with running is when you put your body into a state of mild distress, when you start to run, you now have your body needs more oxygen. You have to find balance. You have to focus on solving your body's immediate problems. And the beauty of that is it takes your brain away from all the other stuff in your life. So when you start for a run, you're like, oh, actually, you know what? My back hurts a little. I better straighten up. Ooh, I'm having trouble breathing. I better breathe better. I better move my arms better. And so your body becomes focused on itself. And I think that frees up your brain to start accessing other things which you need to deal with. And it becomes this purely like meditative state that is, I think, unbelievably effective at allowing you to get to your higher self. I don't want to speak too spiritually about it, but I don't know if you guys, Sebastian, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but do you guys ever leave the house in a bad mood? Like, God damn it, my girlfriend said this, and why can't she just buy the toilet paper like I asked her? You leave the house annoyed at something, and about 30 minutes into your run, you're like, oh, who cares? Like it doesn't matter. Or maybe it was my fault.
That's basically why I run. Like it's
right.
And just we have too many. How do I call this? Like I don't want to say problems or issues, but we have too many. We're very contaminated because of society, expectations, work, relationships, friends, family,
social
media. And when you go out running, it's just you and your legs, and nothing matters. The world can end at that moment, and I'm happy.
It's kind of a funny thing too, because the real hero of Born to Run is our friend Micah True, and that actually happened to him. It was actually 10 years ago. This past March, he disappeared one day when he was out in the Gila wilderness in New Mexico on a run, and disappeared. And we all went looking for him, and when we found him, he was lying peacefully by a creek out in the wilderness, and he had actually died during a run. And I don't want to glamorize his death. I'm sure he would much happier be alive right now. But I look back on it and I feel like he took a very wonderful exit. doing the thing he loved the most in the place he loved the most. And if the world had to end, that might not be the worst place.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we haven't spoken a lot about Caballo Blanco. Yeah, could you talk about him a bit, about his life?
Yeah,
What does he mean to you? Obviously that finale is kind of epic. Like what you're saying.
he was one of a kind, and I often think about, we're so lucky that he was so unhappy, because he was a grouchy guy, and but you start to learn pretty early on, like, don't take it seriously. He complained about everything. He's always unhappy, always pissed off, always complaining. But that's what made him special. And none of this would have happened if he wasn't kind of a grouchy, unpleasant guy. He did not fit in to normal mainstream American life. And so he went off to a place where he did fit in, and he liked it down there. But he wanted other people to experience what he experienced. But when they did, he got annoyed. So it became fun to deal with him, because like, he would invite you to come down, and then you go, oh, here's an example. So after the Copper Canyon race, I was back in the United States, and I decided that I was going to try to run the Leadville Trail 100. And so I went out there to train, and it was me and my friend Eric Horton, Coach Eric Horton, and we were training on the Leadville Trail 100 course. And I emailed Micah. I said, hey, dude, where are you? He's like, hey, I'm back in Colorado visiting somebody. I said, hey, come on out to Leadville and run with us. So Caballo came to this little town in Colorado, and it was me, him, and Eric. We shared one room together, and every day we'd go out and run for hours in the mountains, and he was our guide, and he was delightful. He was so fun, telling stories, and his energy is endless. This guy could run for like 7 days. We had such a great time. But then we'd come back at night, and we'd go out for like a pizza, and we'd be in a pizza restaurant, and someone would walk up to them and say, hey, how you doing? Where'd you get that hat? What do you care? It's just a hat. What do you care about hats? He'd be so fucking rude. And I'm like, dude, they're being nice to you, And so that was the two sides of Caballo, that when he's doing what he wants, he was sunshine, but that big old dark cloud of his was always there. And what he means to me is that, I got to say, this is going to sound crazy, right? But how people talk about, oh, Jesus Christ, he died for our sins. I kind of feel like Micah True kind of died for our sins, that Micah put himself in a position of danger and risk, and we all benefited from it. He was doing what he wanted, but we got the benefit because of the discomfort he put himself into.
Yeah, that's
it.
Awesome,
I just called Caballo Blanco Jesus Christ.
But awesome story, he's. I imagine he was really great. Reading about him was, wonderful.
One of the real satisfactions that I had was, you're writing a book and you're trying to put into words things you see, and you're trying to describe experiences that you had, and you're never quite sure, did I get it right? Maybe I described this person wrong. And now that it's been over 10 years, I can see Barefoot Ted and realize I got him exactly as he is. I would see Jen Shelton, and she's like drinking and partying. I'm like, you know what? I feel like my description was like on the money. So I've been friendly and stayed close friends with everyone who's in the book since then. And I like to feel that, okay, what you see in the book, that's exactly who they are.
Oh, that's really, really nice. So Chris, you have a new book coming, right?
Yeah, actually, something? I got a copy right here too. Hang on. I just got the first copies.
Oh, wow.
Here we go. Look at this.
Nice.
It's probably going to be all backwards and stuff, but it is a Born to Run 2, the ultimate training guide. And here's a picture of our Mufo in there. The reason why is because when I wrote Born to Run, one thing I was not going to do was tell anybody how they should train, because I was a newcomer to the sport. It was too new to me. But I've realized that it's now been 15 years since I first started working on that project. And all the stuff that I was hoping would happen, it happened. You know, I was hoping I could turn myself into a runner who was healthy, who wouldn't get injured, who could have fun and run as far as he wants, whenever he wants. And here it is 15 years later, and that's all come true. So I teamed up with my coach, Eric Horton, to try and put all that information. And we wanted to create a training book that was like unlike any other book out there. We wanted to really get at the real experience of
When does it come out?
it. It comes out in the US in December 6th.
Okay.
And I'm not sure when it will be available in Colombia. I'm not sure when the Spanish translation will be available, but hopefully sometime in the coming year.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Chris,
We're gonna be some of the first. Go ahead, Sales.
Chris, do you know how many languages did the first one got translated into?
I think 27, but I don't remember. It's been a while. But yeah, there's a period where it was kind of everywhere.
Nice. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy ride.
Yeah, and if Born to be Run is like the Bible, as you mentioned, Caballo Blanco is his Jesus Christ, you know?
Right? How about that? How about that?
Yeah.
Hey, you something kind of cool. Hey, do you guys know a Mexican film called Ya no estoy aquí?
No, ya no estoy aquí.
Oh, you have to see it. You have to see it. You have to see it. So it's about these Mexican teenagers in Monterrey, in a very tough neighborhood of Monterrey. But they idolize cumbias, but particularly Colombian cumbias. But they slow them down. So they love traditional Colombian music, but really slowed down to a very slow tempo. And they dance to these very slow cumbias. And it becomes like this whole like street art for like these like tough Monterrey kids. It's a fantastic movie. I love it. And the director is a guy named Fernando Frias. He's a Mexican director. So he recently agreed to direct a television version of Born to Run.
Wow.
So we'll see if it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but if it does happen, the person who will direct the TV series of Born to Run will be Fernando Frias, who is the director of this terrific Mexican film called Ya no estoy aquí.
Nice. So Chris, apart from Caballo, I guess, if I ask you who's your favorite runner or historic runner, what would you say?
That's an easy one. Emil Zatopek. Yeah.
That's
Emil Zatopek. Yeah. You guys are familiar with
we know the story. He's pretty amazing. Yeah.
He's amazing. He was a guy that started from a position that, hey man, let's have fun. I'm going to train with my wife. I'm going to, run around like a ding dong. My favorite running picture of all time is the picture I found of Emil Zatopek going off to the store, and he's got a shopping basket under his arm, and he's like jumping over this bench in the park, and people in the park are like, "Who's that guy?" I'm like, "Oh, that's just a 3-time Olympic gold medalist running to the grocery store." He had a reputation worldwide as being truly generous and kind and giving and loving, and that never changed. And even as he became great and competition came after him, his heart and his joy never changed. So yeah, Emil Zatopek he's the god.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about him in the show. He has like pretty cool facts and myths around him, which are pretty cool to talk about. And if you had to choose a place, if I told you I'm gonna die and I need to go to a place to run, what's that place you would recommend?
Oh, you know what it is? It's actually the same answer for everybody. I bet you for everybody, it's their own backyard, their own neighborhood. Because when people would ask me like, hey man, where's your favorite place to run? I would think, I really like the trail behind my house. And then I talk to other people and ask them that question. And it's always someplace really near their home. And so, like Sebastian, your favorite place to run. I mean, you could go to like the Inca Trail or whatever, but where's your personal favorite place in the world?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty subjective. It's there's pretty. I live in a very mountain region, so yeah, there's pretty cool. There's pretty cool places around here. It's infinite. So that could be an answer, but yeah, I mean around the world there's pretty cool places I've been. I mean I love the Tahoe area, Lake Tahoe. That's that's probably one of my favorite spots as well. Um, I did go to Iceland. I think that's a place where I tell people, like, if you know you're gonna die, you should go and have an adventure in Iceland. That's like connecting to Mother Earth. Like it's a place in evolution. So yeah, there's pretty cool places, but I know what you mean. I guess it's more on the spiritual side. Like, where do you connect the most? And it's probably near home.
That's what I feel. I spent 20 years living in a very rural part of Pennsylvania, where most of my neighbors were Amish farmers. And every year they host a run, the Bird in Hand Half Marathon. It's a little Amish community in Pennsylvania called Bird in Hand. And they do a half marathon, and it is utterly silent. There is no music, no noise, and people just run. They call it the Valley of No Wires because the Amish don't use telephones or electricity. So there's no telephone poles, no wires, and you're running through cornfields, and all you're hearing is your own breath and your feet and the people next to you. And it's so peaceful. And to me, that got into my head. It's like, man, if I could just run in the farm country of Pennsylvania, and that was my exit from the universe, that's a big win.
Nice. Chris, I think we're getting close to the end. I think you answered most of the questions, and we really ask you questions because we have like all of our friends do run, and we did ask them, like, what would you ask Chris, and those questions came from there. I think that's like the questions you most get, and we wanted to help people understand why we run, because it's something people don't understand. Running it seems foolish, as you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
So thank you a lot for the whole explanation.
Chris, how about your family? Do they run as well?
Yeah, that's one of my happiest accomplishments in life is that I have two daughters, and they are now 22 and 18 years old. And when they were little, I would just take them out in the jog stroller and just push them in the jog stroller. And then we play games. Like, I would like take off my shirt and put the shirt in the back of my pants. And then we play keep away. And like, they would try and run around and catch me and like pull the shirt out of my shorts. Just play little games like that. And they just became runners on their own. And so I'll be sitting around the house, like eating a piece of like pie or something. And I'll see my daughters walking out the door. I'll say, "Where are you going?" "Oh, we're going for a run." Like, really? Like, you just doing it? And I think that what happened was because we modeled it, we showed them, but we never told them. So yeah, dude, it's and maybe that's the answer. Sebastian, when someone asks you, why should I run, or how should I feel good? Say, dude, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to show you, and just take them off in the woods and just have them have a good time. Like, they'll get it.
Yeah, that's great advice. For my son, that's really, really great advice.
Yeah, take them out, let them see it, make it playful, and he'll get it.
Okay, Chris, it's really been an honor having you here. When are you coming to Colombia? We would like to have you.
Let's make that happen. Let's make that happen, guys. Let's stay in touch. If something good comes along, if you guys talk me into it, I'm very suggestible. I can be talked into anything. So
yeah, Chris, I've seen. We can speak about it later on, behind the scenes. But yeah, I've seen you do a lot of like last month you were doing like a workshop or something. You do have like a clinic or I'm not sure how it goes, but that would be awesome if we can set up something here.
I would really enjoy. I would love to see more of Colombia. I'd like to get out of the city and see the rest of the country. So, let's stay in touch, guys. I really like talking to you guys. So, if something comes along, it seems good. I'll be down.
Nice, and you'll enjoy it here. There's a lot of mountains and high elevation. So, as soon as you land, you'll see the place, and it's amazing.
Beautiful, guys. I'm looking forward to it. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Chris. It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
guys. Congratulations, Papa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris.
All right.
Nice meeting you.
Las opiniones expresadas en este podcast son responsabilidad exclusiva de los conductores y no representan las empresas para las que trabajan.